Raise your hand if you would take a budget airline. Raise your hand. Okay, that's still a lot of people, huh? And who would not? Okay, and I guess the rest of you would take the bus. Or maybe a submarine, right? Okay, to discuss those sorts of issues with us, I will be in conversation now with Robert Bailey, who is the President and CEO of Abacus International. Robert, please, come on up. Okay, first of all, Abacus, I mean, you know everything about travel, right?
Well, I wouldn't say everything. I think we're in a very interesting position that we provide the technology behind all the travel agencies' booking systems, be they online or offline, across the Asia-Pacific region. So we get to see a lot of travel and a lot of activities there. We probably transact around $250 billion worth of business and travel across the region every year. So it's quite a lot of stuff coming through our systems.
Great. So how realistic was this skit that we just saw?
It's always easy to pull out certain elements, but the use of low-cost carriers is certainly increasing. It's a massive trend in Asia.
25% market share?
I think, well, it depends which region we're at. We're about 25% now overall, but in Southeast Asia, it's about 55 to 58% of capacity. Northeast Asia, it's about 9%. So there's, it's a different rate in different regions.
Right. So Northeast Asia is including China?
This is excluding China.
Excluding China. And in China also there are very few budget airlines because it's controlled by the government, right? Okay. So based on the information, based on the research that you have, do people prefer budget airlines or full service airlines? Under what circumstances? Do you have information, data on that?
There's a lot of. We did a recent study on the corporate travel space, and that was very interesting because one of the things it came up with was corporates are still tightening their belts in terms of travel and entertainment, and one of the things that leads to, so 73% of the corporates we polled, corporate travel agents said their corporates were tightening their belts, and 73% were putting their staff through onto low-cost carriers more and more. And this is sort of as a result of some of the economic uncertainties that were out there in the marketplace. So from a business perspective, people are starting to use or specify the use of low-cost carriers more. Singapore is quite interesting in this space because we've got a very good hub here in Singapore, and it's actually quite easy and convenient to use those carriers, particularly in Southeast Asia.
Right, and you will be expanding, as a matter of fact. In KL as well, right? I mean, there are new airports and new terminals being built for budget airlines per se.
Absolutely. And in terms of the key routes out of Singapore, Singapore to KL, Singapore to Jakarta, they're some of the busiest air traffic routes in the world in terms of numbers of services. So again, it's very, very vibrant in that space.
And these budget airlines have also been quite innovative in terms of about how to charge for various services, right?
Yeah, I think we in the industry they're called ancillary revenues, and they make up about, depending on which carrier you're looking at with the low cost carriers, about 20% of their revenue, 15-20% of their revenue comes from ancillary services. You and I would probably know it as the bag fee, the ticket fee, the boarding pass fee, the turning up fee, the food fee. If you're on a traditional airline, most of these things are bundled.
But you don't need all of them. Sometimes you don't want to have food, you just want to sleep.
I think
sometimes you don't travel with lots of luggage, right? Sometimes you do. So how are the legacy airlines, right? The full service airlines, how are they reacting to the challenge coming from the budget airlines?
Well, I think the challenge is coming from a number of areas. One is you've got short-haul routes, which I just alluded to earlier. And again, there are regional differences. The traditional carriers have relied on high-quality product, high service, high touch, and all the trimmings, and also have access to certain schedule advantages. So they're sort of focusing on some of those areas. They're also looking at the fact that the demographics across the region and the economic development that's going across in many of the markets in Asia are driving demand for first-time travellers. So the carriers are looking at what can they do to tap into this growing demand, this growing volume of travellers. Some of the key established carriers are setting up different brands, so different airlines in the space. Some are setting up completely separate entities, and then some are doing nothing. So we've got different responses.
I believe it's ultimately about becoming more customer focused. And we've done a project here at ACI for a not to be named legacy airline to become more customer oriented, because very often the way they look at it is based on first class, business class, economy class, and then you offer certain services, different ones of course in these different classes of services because people pay different amounts of money for them. But I think another perspective would also be to ask the question, how do customers see it? How do they want to be served? Are there different lifestyle segments? As well as, are there different segments in the sense of some people are very experienced, others are less experienced, some people are younger, and so on. Is that how the industry is?
Yeah, I think you've touched on a number of very, very interesting issues there. But I'd say if we're looking at the new demand that's coming up in the region, everyone talks about Asia, and they talk about it as a uniform, homologous kind of market. It's not. It really, really isn't. So in China, you've got a massive population and a very rapidly evolving wealth, middle class, and so forth. And so there's a lot of demand coming up there. But only about 3% of Chinese have got passports. So not many people have travelled outside of China yet. So when they start to travel outside of China, you've got a group of travellers who are inexperienced, who typically will travel as a group, and it'll be a very sort of organised and managed process. Once they've been out and experienced travel, the repeating travel or trips that they plan, they tend to go up the value chain, start to become more independent, and they want to have more control over where they go, how they book where they're going to stay, what they do while they're out on the trip, and they spend more. And then you get into the business area, business segment, and again that's a very specific and very defined group in terms of what they have demand and what services they want, where they're going, and what they're spending. You go to India, the demographic is quite different. There's a much younger profile there. It's very, very price sensitive, and so they'll make a decision more on price, in terms of where they will book their flights and which carrier they'll book on. So you're seeing a different behaviour there. In Japan, you get the previous panel talked about women consumers and decision makers. I would say I would concur that the women tend to make sort of 70-80% of the decisions on travel as well when they're on holiday. And out of Japan, between Japan and Korea in particular, you have women-only groups going between Japan and Korea, or vice versa, depending on exchange rates, on shopping trips, or on just girls' days out, girls' trips to spas and whatever. And this is a whole segment, and so airlines and travel agencies market to those segments.
Right. So we really have to look at the differences in these different Asian markets.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. We'll be taking questions from you in a moment, and this is a topic that I think everyone is really excited about, and everybody can ask a question about as well. So I'm expecting lots of questions from you in just a moment. One last question, Robert, from me. Technology, right? I mean, we are seeing an explosion of technologies that people are using with respect to travel. Anything from the smartphone information that you're getting there about your travel to other forms of technology. How important is technology for Asian travelers, or for different groups of Asian travelers, and what's happening in that space?
I would say technology is evolving incredibly quickly, and it's a very, very important component for not just travel, for all of our businesses, I believe. But in travel, and obviously this is where our core business sits, is we enable the e-commerce, the electronic marketplace, and the sales of travel services. It's a highly perishable product, and it's a virtual, it's an experiential thing. So putting that across in a virtual way, and also being able to transact and deliver sales across a very, very heterogeneous region is quite a big challenge. But more importantly, the consumers are evolving very, very rapidly as well, because they are hyper-connected these days. The network infrastructure, the internet, and all these various devices are changing the way people consume, they research, they book, they consume and share experiences about and around travel. So you've got this hyper-connectivity, and then you've got this convergence of technology so that people want to be able to move from sitting on a desktop PC or a laptop through, as they consume their travel throughout the whole journey, they want to be able to be seamlessly connected to either their agency or their service providers so that their experience can be tailored to their needs and they can adapt and be flexible as they go through their travels.
And online, I'm sorry, on the flight, there is also increasing in technology. And I'm not just talking about entertainment systems. I'm talking about going on the internet. These sorts of systems are coming back now. They were available already around 2000, and then I think by a company which was a subsidiary of Boeing and went bust. But now we have that development again, right?
Yes.
So people really want to be living the same sort of personal lifestyles as well as business lifestyles, and be connected with everybody wherever they are.
Yeah, they can be always on. They can be always on. There's a benefit and a disbenefit to that, I think. But yes, I mean the technology, and again, this is a factor. The technology has been around to enable the use of wireless devices on aircraft for some time. However, the cost of providing that was prohibitive because the size of the processors, the size of the antenna on these aircraft made them heavy. They burn more. The aircraft burns more fuel, so it has a drag on the cost of the airline's service, and also the number of people who want to use these things in flight. At that stage, it was too early.
Right.
So now I think we've got the consumers evolved, the technology's evolved, and the fuel efficiency of certain of the engine manufacturing and other technology side has enabled them to be a more viable.
So the technology is a whole ecosystem.
It is a whole.
All right, let's take some questions from the audience. Okay, we have two questions here at the front.
Education that needs to go on because you've got quite a large population of travellers who are first-time travellers who maybe just the sheer fact of getting out and flying somewhere, even domestically, is an experience. So I would say in the more mature or developed Asian markets, absolutely there'll be an awareness of other continents, other markets, and there will be more adventurers, I believe. So I think you're going to have different groups of consumers in different markets. And then again, even in, say, China, which is still evolving very rapidly, you'll have certain segments, probably at the top end, who would be looking for that experience. So it's a destination marketing challenge for the countries and the markets concerned.
Okay, this is the gentleman right behind you.
Absolutely, there are probably, I just read an article yesterday saying there are more millionaires in Singapore now than there have been, something like 170,000 people with more than $1 million assets. So I think the premium sector is growing in Asia and will continue to grow, and is absolutely a sweet spot for luxury goods manufacturers. And the traditional carriers are very, very well placed across Asia in this segment today, and they're maintaining that differentiation between the North American and the European markets in particular, and they're basically leading the globe in terms of service to that segment. I think it's going to grow, absolutely, so it's a good marketplace to be focusing, but it's a very, very demanding one. And I think you just mentioned private jets. Again, private jets will be another growth area, I believe, in terms of the ultra-rich travel. In terms of the women travelling, the ladies travelling, again, I think you build on a point that the previous panel made, and also I mentioned before. I think they will be controlling the purse strings on a lot of the discretionary spend, and again, at the high end, I think they will have a massive role to play in that.
We heard from the previous panel that women are more likely to travel than to have sex, right? So a huge opportunity. Okay, thank you very much.